I'd like to open up with one common question for all our panelists. And the question is this: from where you sit in this ecosystem, what is the biggest point of friction standing between a customer and useful health protection that your organization is uniquely placed to remove? And I think I'd like to start with you, Njeri. This is your house, so we'll give you the honor of starting us.
Thank you for that question. What is the one friction that Jubilee is most best positioned to address?
Yeah.
I think there are many, but the one I'd like to pick on best is, of course, technical capabilities there. Working with a resilience partner is critical, but I think that is as vanilla as everybody else can be able to provide. The main one really for us is how we approach healthcare and how we approach healthcare financing. It's a level of detail that we go into understanding the solutions that we provide, but more importantly, how much work we put in to make sure that they're not just quality in terms of affordability. The level of AI we've deployed is quite significant, and I'll tell you why it's been important is because today almost 30% of the claims insurers pay is often first and foremost fraud, waste, and abuse. When we analyze that bill, we find elements of extra billing, whether it's in drugs, extra billing in terms of consumables, and the amount of work we do. And I'll tell you, for us, we are almost unrelenting in this conversation because every extra billing goes back to the customer as a cost. So we've made significant investments in technology to make sure that the client's bill has less and less fraud, waste, and abuse. So what we are doing is really just making sure that the client and the provider, in terms of the hospital, are actually looking to give the best care and making sure that they do it right. And I will tell you, we do hold them accountable to the treatment protocols and the outcomes. And that's important because we see the data and be able to tell whether we are seeing the right outcomes from the client's treatment. So that is what I think Jubilee best addresses.
Thanks so much for that.
Something super personal and it needs to be very relevant to you as an individual. And I think if we are managing to get that together, right, that like I was in South Africa yesterday, I didn't buy a travel insurance, shame on me. Not because I don't have the 2,000 shilling, but because, nobody triggered me in that moment to get that travel insurance, right? But if somebody would have triggered that to me in that moment, I would likely have gotten it. And that is what we are seeing in so many kind of instances, that if we are not making protection insurance relevant to the person at the right time, we are just a little bit shooting in the dark. We get these emails, get travel from bank ABC or insurance companies ABC, but in the moment we need it, it's not there. So that is one of the biggest kind of disconnect for me to have a wider rollout.
Fantastic. So basically at the end of the day, it's about streamlining that process. And Njeri, I'd like to come back to you. You and I have had the privilege actually of doing a lengthy podcast. I think it was last year. And we really discussed the journey that Jubilee has been on in terms of, if I can use the phrase, embedding technology and AI and digital transformation at the core. And I think you're one of the insurance organizations in this country that has really used technology to underpin who you are, how you do claims, how you detect fraud. So it's very much at the core of your DNA as an organization. So at this point in time, we're now moving away from that to this embedded approach. And I'd just like to understand what that brings to the table for you as an organization that's quite digitally transformed already, but what does this allow you to do going forward through this partnership?
So today, if you look at how insurance runs, and I like to call that the traditional way of doing it, we have mastered that in how we do it. And if you look at how innovation is done, is you can continue to make improvements on what you traditionally do well. Embedded insurance is a completely different approach to product, to process, to technology, and that is a completely out-of-the-box approach. A lot of our technology today, and I'll say because some of the people are here, is we actually have a tech hub internally where we do a lot of our own technology and are even expanding that. We're doing it, probably considering a tech company, which will do a lot more of that. But we do not intend to develop everything. Where we find that there's a partner who has capability or capacity, we do not have to develop in that route. And that is what we have found in bolttech. And therefore, that makes our work easier. Embedded insurance addresses one key concern. Most of us use digital devices. That provides convenience. And that enables us to find the customer where they are. Today, if we begin to build on that approach, if I take my traditional way of doing things, it's a complete disruption in terms of approach and so on. So one, I get to get the technology, I get to work with the partner has the insights on the customer that allows me to be able to develop a product that suits them. Now, what this does, it helps us have more reach. How much further can we go? How much further can we reach the customer? Whether it's in terms of helping them understand the solution exists, helping them to come on board, and helping them to purchase a product. A lot of the research we're looking at will tell you that Kenyans do have healthcare concerns and healthcare financing concerns. The issue, though, is we have an issue with prepaying for care. We prefer to utilize it at the point where there's an issue, and therefore we still have a lot to do around the culture and the approach. But the biggest thing we'll address with embedded insurance, which is definitely the only way we can have the reach that we're looking for, will be to use the embedded insurance approach. They naturally gravitate towards credit. They naturally will gravitate. I mean, all of us will work with a bank, will work with a financial institution, will have a phone, will have every other item. But world over, what is tested is that for this to work, for this to truly scale, because we do not naturally attract trust. And if you think about it, insurance doesn't naturally have its own trust. We really have a transfer of trust in terms of the fact that there is what we are almost, we are a high-touch product. We're a bit far off. It's a bit complex. So it's not what you naturally gravitate to. Our opportunity with embedded insurance is to partner with the points where customers find convenience and work with those to take them from what they want to what they need. And that is what embedded insurance will be doing for us.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're doing essentially is you're meeting the customer where they are.
Absolutely.
At their moment of need.
At their moment of need.
Great. Bryan, I'd like to come back to you. Safaricom has already launched embedded insurance products. I believe you have Tuunza Mapato and Tuunza Simu. What have those experiences taught you about designing protection for mobile and M-Pesa customers, particularly when it comes to relevance, affordability, payment frequency, language, and also customer understanding?
Yeah, thanks. I think it's been a learning experience for us because everything that we try to do on the M-Pesa ecosystem is based on specific data that we are picking up and trends. And I'm happy to see a couple of partners that we are working with in the room with regards to some of these solutions. Our biggest learnings with regards to some of these embedded solutions that we are pushing is, of course, what Njeri spoke to. The right product, right person, right time, that's critical. But also the fact that you must have sufficient data for that customer for you to be able to do what we refer to as human-centered design, which also Bente spoke about, where you're looking at the customer on an end-to-end journey, all the way from when they wake up, what do they actually care about? Are they moving to work? Are you able to offer a solution at that juncture? And then you also have to look at the full life cycle of that customer. And most importantly is also focusing it down where you're looking at a segment of one. Most importantly is you don't curate a solution that's, mass market that everyone can access, but you're able to understand the segmentation within your business. So those big learnings for us have really modeled how we are able to look at the premium that we are charging, the frequency of the collection of the premium, which must match how you're offering the benefits. So you'll note that in the products that have been mentioned, we do have weekly collection of premiums. We also have monthly, so different frequencies. And the other big thing that we've learned is distribution is everything. So you can have the right product, you can have everything in place, but if you don't have the right distribution model in place, that's going to be an issue. And that is how embedded insurance comes out very strongly. That all these solutions that we have, when distributed through mass market, when we put them on our platform, the uptake is not as good as when they're embedded. Again, as I said, we do have a couple of partners that we are working with in this room on the device insurance, also on the Tuunza Mapato solution that was mentioned earlier. But also the fact that we have certain resources that nobody else in the market can replicate, and that is our agency ecosystem. And there's a partnership that we are in with bolttech with regards to empowering our agents to be able to distribute insurance. So without all these critical prerequisites, all the way from identifying the right customer, the right product, finding them in the right place, looking at their affordability, because certain customers, which is the segmentation I referred to earlier, are you able to actually segment a customer to identify that this is what Bryan needs and this is what Moses needs separately? We may not want the same solution because Njeri alluded to it earlier. We're replicating products. And unfortunately, in this market, we do that a lot, where we see underwriter A has a very successful product that's targeting a certain specific segment of customers. So we just replicate that, improve slightly, and undercut on the premium. That's not the direction. We really need to understand the specific customer that we're targeting, all the way to their affordability, and also partnerships with banking institutions, because we need to all play into our strengths. For example, the strength in Safaricom is data and distribution, just to name a few. But then we have Jubilee, who's very strong in underwriting and also their experience in the market. You have bolttech, who are very strong in terms of the tech that they use. And we have distribution partners. So we do understand also, as I conclude, that there are certain customers who, for example, all of you seated here, you have customers who look up to you, similar to what Watu does. They're still in our ecosystem, but you're much closer to them than we are. So how then can we also take advantage of that? And that just reels back the importance of partnerships, even with distributions, and the strength of numbers that we have.
Great, thank you so much for that. Ken, I'd like to come back to you. For many Watu customers, a financed motorcycle, three-wheeler, two-wheeler, or a smartphone is simply just not an asset. It's a means of income. It's how they actually are making their daily bread. So where can health protection add genuine value within that financing journey? And how do you ensure that the customer sees it as useful and voluntary protection rather than extra cost?
Thanks. So the product that we give out to our customers, we are looking at them as an enabler for them to essentially be able to make a living. Looking back where we started with the two-wheelers and three-wheelers, we started in Mombasa, and we were able to give people these assets, and they've been able to at least bring themselves up and self-sustainability. Now looking into the mobile space, because now with the mobile as a product, we've actually been able to introduce a lot of connectivity. You know, people are able to make a living out of it, from social, from entertainment, and all this. But anytime a health event happens, everything stops. And so what does this mean for a customer? That they are not able to generate the day-to-day income of what they have to do. They're not able to participate in basically building their lives at that particular point. So for us, we are looking at how do we then package this to the customer, where they see this as a value add to them. Because once they have this and any unforeseen health event happens, then they should be able to at least have a fallback for them, be able to have the necessary support that they require. And once this is successful and they've been able to overcome this, they're able to go back and utilize the specific assets of what they use to basically continue with their day-to-day lives, as this is what the primary source of income for them is coming on. So this is one of the things that we are looking at, is what is the value add that the customer is able to gain from this, and without them seeing it as more of a financial burden or an extra charge that is just put on board to them. So it's more of, how can I ensure that I am protected and for my livelihood and be able to continue?
Would you say, and I'm the initial purchase, and then as a result of that, it transforms their behavior, because now they're like, aha, now I get it. If I didn't have this, now this insurance has changed my life.
Most definitely. Actually, when somebody takes it up, they never foresee what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And in a lot of instances, that's where there's a bit of restriction, or basically not wanting to pick up this product, because you don't know when it's happening or what's the value for it. Until that moment when it happens, that's when the aha moment comes in and realize, okay, yes, this was actually a fruitful product for me. And now how can I continue and build it up more and more for myself? And as an extension, not only to themselves, because if they are the primary breadwinner within their family, then this extends to what happens to their family. So we've actually had very good success stories with our customers, and they are happy that this indeed is actually something that is supporting them accordingly. But in a lot of instances, you're right. It actually hits them most when it actually happens.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Bente, I'd like to come back to you. You built MTech as a fully digital and paperless insurance platform before it became part of bolttech's global system. From that experience, what is the difference between simply digesting an insurance product and generally embedding protection into a customer journey that people understand, trust, and continue to use?
You know, that mic only works with you, Njeri, I think. So the question is about which product do you particularly think would be perfect to embed, right? Where would we see the most impact? I still, and I'm not saying that because we're here at Jubilee Health, I do believe it's health.
Okay.
Because you see, health is touching on everybody. We have sometimes these discussions. You know, when a health incident hits you, we all here are saying all the time, nothing else matters, right? Doesn't matter whether you're going to work in the morning, doesn't matter, you know, it's the focus, yeah? So I think the biggest impact we can get with health, any kind of health protection. I am a huge fan, and this is, I think, where the industry still has to do some work. We need to explain the health products in the market better, even the micro ones, so people understand what is covered and what is not covered. A hospicash, as much as we all love hospicash, is not a health cover. It's maybe a good add-on, and it's a good start, but it's not a health cover. But the biggest impact, definitely health, because that's protecting livelihoods, yeah? Where we still have to do a lot is getting the right product and explaining it in the right way. We see a lot of times, because it's so micro. I mean, a hospicash is how, I don't want to put you on the spot. It's 100 shillings, right? And we have seen it a lot in the market that when people have a hospicash, they're assuming they have a health cover. Everybody here in the room knows that's a bit far-fetched, yeah? So I think the biggest opportunity is getting very good micro health covers. Inpatient, outpatient, a micro maternity in there. You know, this fully fledged micro medical. Yeah. Now, I'm sometimes in meetings when I'm sitting with partners, and I love all of you, and they're saying and coming, you know, inpatient, 50,000 shilling on the micro side, that's not enough. Now I'm asking, what was your first car? I don't need you to answer that. But you probably had another car as your first car than what you're driving today. But you started somewhere. Not everybody can have Njeri's nearly international, fully fledged health cover, Aga Khan, private wing, Princess Zara. Not everybody can have that. But does that mean we are letting the people who can't afford that trip over? No, I don't think so. So to answer your question in very many words, a micro medical cover. I'm not speaking about a PA. I'm not speaking about a hospicash. I'm not speaking about, you know, the add-ons. I'm speaking about a fully fledged micro medical.
Great, thanks for that. So at this point, we will take a few questions from the audience. I'm sure many of you might have some thoughts, or you want to get more detail. I do believe there's a microphone available to come to you, but if you raise your hand, it'll be brought to you. I think we'll take a maximum of 2 questions, then we'll bring the panel to a close.
Good morning. And this is a challenge to all of us, myself included. It's been said technology will play the central role of moving the 3% to a double digit. And we have technology resources at the hub and elsewhere. I'm just curious, and you don't need to answer this. I'm not sure we'll get an answer today, but who manages the technology people? Because it's one thing to be churning out things. And I'm asking this because as an innovator, we've been frustrated to the point of pulling out hair, which I don't have. Perhaps 3 like Tintin. I may have 3 if someone were to check. But who manages these people? Because they actually are the flywheel that leads to success. And we have, thank God, I didn't come with my CTO today, but it's the same story, even where I'm coming from. So there's a disconnect between the vision from Exco and execution. And it's the talent is there, but we need to know what people have done today and how it contributes to embedding on the Naivas card.
Bente,
Yeah, I guess. You still have some hair, don't worry. It's a question which keeps us awake at night because I'm coming to meetings and lots of you know that technology is not the golden bullet in the solution. And we have to understand and we have to respect that. We are an enabler. Yeah. So when you're asking who's managing the technology, likely, first of all, we should manage ourselves, but we cannot do it alone because we are an enabler. Now, the biggest challenge as bolttech we are coming across in different markets, not just here in Kenya and South Africa and Uganda, Rwanda, everywhere. And we are all feeling that sometimes. We are all believing we can do everything by ourselves. What is so difficult of what Felix has been building for 7 years here in East Africa? You know, we're coming across it. We have a tech up, we have a pool table in the lobby, you know, and this is going in all directions. I said in my speech earlier, we are not an insurance company. We are not intending to become an insurance company. In no market you can find us. So the biggest challenge to execution in every market we are seeing is every market player should just excel in what they are supposed to do. And I know it's repetitive talk, and I know it's a panel talk, but it is like, Njeri, you guys are an underwriter. Yes, you need technology to integrate technology partners. Watu, what is your core business? Safaricom, what is your core business? And I'm telling you, if we all remember that while we are creating the bridges to cooperate with others, we'll probably move much faster. And for that, you have to find the right partners, because there will be meetings, and I have had these meetings. I'm sure you had these meetings where I want to become a microfinance institution now. I am not. Yeah. But you see, so the key here is find partnerships where everybody understands their position and respects the partner's position.
Great, thanks for that. I think there was the gentleman who had a hand up.
I want to add to that most that you can.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I think, and I agree. I think it's true. Technology is not the silver bullet. If we don't have the strategy and we don't know what we want, technology is an enabler. So it doesn't fix the fact that we don't know what we want. But I also hear the additional frustration, which is you say, we're saying, who's regulating these technology partners? And I can relate to the fact that every time you want something done, you will have a million people who say, I can get it done. And I can relate to the fact that halfway through, that's when the surprises begin to come, because, I mean, they can't deliver this, they can't deliver that, or you extend timelines and so on. So that frustration exists. But I want to emphasize what Bente said, the right partner, and the diligence around the right partners. You share philosophy, you are clear on what you want to approach together, and that really is where I think you get it right. I mean, and at times it's big brands who will come in with a solution, and halfway through you realize you probably are in the middle of something, you know, I don't know, capacity is not there and so on. And it's consistently, and I guess there are many conversations we can have on technology and how that, I mean, it's a good maze. But what we experience with partners like bolttech is the fact that we have a shared philosophy, we have a shared vision. They have demonstrated capacity, they have that, and therefore for us, we have a lot more confidence as Jubilee in knowing that this is someone we can work with. So it definitely has to be the right partner.
Thank you for that, Njeri. So I don't know, the gentleman would still like to ask you a question.
Hi, panel. Thanks for giving us a chance to have this conversation. So my question to you is mostly on first consumer segmentation and then product segmentation. So from consumer point of view, if you look at the technology enablement, the initiatives that you're doing, largely people who we call SU30 or SU35, so to speak, are the ones who are more technologically savvy, and they can navigate quickly through these applications that we develop. Unfortunately, this group of people don't have the extra cash to feel to spend on something like insurance. They'll probably focus on the basics first, right? The other segment, which is on the upper side, they have the cash flow, they have accumulated some wealth, they want to buy, but they are still on that old mindset. We don't trust insurance. And again, they're not technologically savvy. So how do we bridge these two consumer segments? The other one is on product. For a long time, insurance has been a product that is provided by the employer, so to speak. And people take it as a benefit for working for someone. And if you look at what we're trying to do with technology and the micro products, we are targeting a retail market, the Juakali sector. These people, from insurance standpoint, doesn't really matter for them. And we need a lot more education, a lot more support. So my question would be, what support are you offering on the side of the retail? Yeah, just to make it kickstart, because I think it's quite a challenge to bridge that gap and make somebody understand why they need insurance. And this is beyond price. As much as hospital cash may be cheap, they don't still see the need. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question, I guess.
Yeah, happy to
Bryan,
take that
okay.
one. So on consumer segmentation, I think I'll allude to an example which we've been able to adopt. Safaricom having 50 million customers actively using the network and 48 million customers actively using M-Pesa, you will imagine that you're serving a very wide range of consumers within that cohort. So what we've been able to do is identify through various metrics such as demographics, which is the age, for example. We also have the financial bit of it in terms of affordability, and you're able to see it in the transactions. So while identifying your customers, most important is to consider all those mechanisms and not necessarily assume that certain cohorts of customers, for example, will have a perception issue about a solution. In our experience and the solutions that we've been able to roll out from an insurance point of view, and it will also speak to the product segmentation question that you had, is we note that the appetite is there from customers, especially if you explain insurance in a language they understand. I'll give you an example, and this is an analogy that we use quite often, where a lot of what we see in the villages is risk pooling to a large extent with the chamas, which is a key insurance principle, where people put in funds, and in the event of something happening, a portion of those funds are used to offset any issues that come out there. So if you're able to translate and say that we're just formalizing whatever it is you already have back in the village, it sort of rings into them. And going beyond that is the embedding bit, because what we've done, and you'll see it quite often in the market, is we've been able to embed insurance on some of the core solutions that we offer, such as our GSM solutions. You'll see a lot of Ofaya Boda, Bundle ya Dere, bundle ya wakulima that have insurance embedded in them. And those become ambassador products in the sense that we've been able to segment the customers by exactly what their craft is. So you have the border rider, you have the Uber drivers, and you also have the farmers. So you've already segmented them as consumers, and then you go to a next level of saying that they have certain needs beyond, what they typically do. For example, they need, and this is specific for us, they need GSM resources such as data, minutes, and SMSs, for example. So how then do you add a bundle for insurance within that so that you're able to distribute? And once they access this product, you create awareness. We are seeing a lot of uptick, and even them coming back to us and asking the question which Bente has answered, because we're embedding a hospicash and they're coming to us and saying, okay, so I see this thing is quite valuable to me in the sense that if I'm admitted, I get a payout, but now I need a micro medical cover. I need something that I can walk into a hospital, just like the employed people you spoke about, and say, I am covered under Jubilee Insurance, and I get treatment there and then. And it's good to see that Jubilee has come up with things such as Kavabora, which will be able to address some of these challenges that we're facing in the market. So most importantly is, one, ensure you identify your customer. And what we've done, again, just to recap, is we've identified them by the craft that they perform, what they care about. Again, human-centered design. This guy wakes up, he gets on his motorbike. There are certain risks that this guy faces. How do we address them? He needs data to be able to get those Uber requests that are coming in. He needs minutes to call the customer and say, I'm on my way. Then how do you then say, in the event of an accident, there's something that we can also give you? So it's identifying end to end. And I understand your challenge, because as a partner, I've interacted with quite a lot of you. You already have a core service that you're offering, whether it is like Watu, you're offering credit service. You're already struggling to get the customers, and customers are struggling to pay you. How then do you introduce insurance to these customers? One thing I'll leave you with as a provocation is, I have seen insurance as a reward working very strongly, where you're saying, if you're able to make your repayments on time, I'll give you an insurance package. That has worked very, very well. Build that within your models so you're able to accumulate or access some premium that you're able to use, and you're able to give that to the customer as a reward in case of repayment. That only applies for when you're offering credit facilities. How about the Haki, for example, who have drivers? How do you compensate them to remain on your network? Insurance is a solution. So whatever is happening here is quite powerful.
Wow, fantastic. Thanks for that.
I want to add something to what Bryan has said, where when we are speaking about insurance as a reward is working extremely well. We're having a partner here in the room who gives their agents, external agents, a micro medical for achieved KPIs. Without talking too much about data, but we started in the first, call it cohort, with about 10% what we are having 6 months later now. So it has really been driving, execution of these agents. So if you had 100 agents and it's more, let's say 1,000 agents in the first cohort, a couple of months later, 10,000 agents hit the KPI. So medical is super important for people. It's the first question in HR is being asked, is there medical? We all know that. So, and it works 100%. I'm just agreeing as a kind of KPI enabler.
Njeri, I think we need to hear your point of view. You're in the cauldron. You know what goes on in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I won't go as much into it, but if you want to look at it today, every one of us here, any loan you take with any bank will have a layer of insurance. Now, I can assure you, you don't know the value of that insurance until, God forbid, your cards run out, because your family's debt is paid. You're not going to have to pay for that loan. So that's why I talked about the fact that, is insurance typically something we want? No. Is it something we need? Yes. So that is the journey we have to walk on in terms of really helping. And I can tell you, they do value when they get to understand I went to hospital. But you'll also notice that today, in terms of digital credit, the largest component now is medical bills. People are actually borrowing at the last minute because they're sick. But I can assure you, at that point, it's so desperate. Now, I will ask in the room, how many of us in the last 1 month have been in a WhatsApp group to fundraise for health insurance? Then allow me to tell you, you are their insurance. You are their insurance because it's pulling. It's pulling. But there's a big shift that is going to happen, and I want us to really watch it. When most of us were younger, and I know some of you don't fit in the group I'm describing, there was a trend we talked about where people were doing pre-weddings. Anyone in the room remember pre-weddings? Raise your hand so that we recognize who we are. Yeah, it's not all of us. So by then, people wanted to get married. They sent around a card and people were fundraising for you to get married. And then people began to ask, hang on, you met, you like each other, you went through this timeline. How do you decide I get to fund whether you want to do a destination wedding? And it dropped off. They did not start rationalizing because our community element died. It is because our disposable income continues to shrink, and that causes us to reprioritize. There was the other big trend. We were fundraising for people to go for higher education. Who remembers? Now, who does? Fact, we tell you, if you can't afford it, don't go. Now, I can assure you, we're already seeing it with medical insurance. Today, and I was telling someone, I'm convinced Kenyans wrote to WhatsApp to say, can you put a feature where I can say yes or no to joining our WhatsApp group? Because it's now the feature. But it is not that our community element is dying. It is that disposable income is causing us to be more intentional about our choices. You forming a WhatsApp group and adding someone who came from when you were in primary school and adding them to a group and hoping to tap into their humanity, that is very Kenyan. It's Harambe. But while we want to help, our own pressing needs become more and more dire. So what we expect is, as this transition continues, this is actually going to be one of our biggest conversations. And today, our data tells us almost 1 million Kenyans experience catastrophic health expenditure yearly. That's a big number. It should concern us because it really continues to push more and more people into poverty just because of healthcare and healthcare related needs.
Wow, such incredible insights. Ken, I feel you have something to contribute. You must have something to give us from the Watu credits perspective.
Yeah, I'll just be brief because I know of time. But yes, generally, also looking at the demographic of our customers that we have, giving that, looking at the motorbike riders and also the smartphone users, the penetration of especially smartphones, you realize young people are actually the ones taking it up. Now, the diversity of what we want to look at as Watu is then beyond just having the asset, what more can we do to ensure that at least there's a bit of continuity on your end? Generally, looking at our demographic, when I look at this, a majority of our customers actually are what we call daily payers, and they actually basically pay for their asset on a daily basis, as much as that's not the contractual agreement that they have. But it just shows that they actually live on a day-to-day basis of what they have to do in every single day. Now, what can we do just to make sure that we target specifically this cohort of people where we can make it a barrier to entry, make it easier for them to just have access to this health insurance. And not only that, we're looking at also what we are discussing as what we call device protection, where it ensures that you are protected from your asset, but also you're protected health-wise to ensure that basically you can live free, as Jubilee says.
Fantastic. So I think we're out of time. Please give them a big hand. It's been amazing.